You're listening to Artistic Finance, show 167 bonus. On today's show, we talk with Roma Flowers, a lighting designer for dance and theater based in Texas. We discuss opening a 401k when young, legacy and generational wealth, keeping overhead low in the lean times, partnering with someone better than you at finances, and reporting income on taxes to pay into Social Security. This episode is in partnership with LDI as we lead up to our live recording there on December 8th. I'd love to see you there and be listening because Ellen drops a promo code for a free Expo Hall pass during today's show. So if you want to attend the live recording, you have at least your conference pass taken care of. As always, links to everything we discuss is in the show notes or for this episode at artisticfinance.com/167 bonus. Without further ado, let's get to the show.
You are listening to Artistic Finance, where we help creatives learn about the business of show business.
Welcome and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Ethan Steimel, broadcasting from Lake St. Louis, Missouri.
And I'm your co-host, Ellen Lampert-Gréaux, creative director for LDI, and I'm calling in from the tropical island of St. Bart's.
Nice. And I am today's guest here, Roma Flowers, and I am calling in from Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, welcome to Artistic Finance, Roma. For any of you who don't know, Roma Flowers is a designer, and she skids easily between theater, music, concerts, dance. She is the recipient of a New York Dance and Performance Award known as the Bessies and a Night of Illumination sword holder. She is resident lighting designer for Dark Circles Contemporary Dance in Dallas. So welcome.
Thank you. Ellen, I have to update you. I have retired from Texas Christian University.
Oh my gosh.
But I am Professor Emeritus, so.
Are you still teaching or you're not teaching?
I'm not teaching regularly. I do a master class here and there. I'm back into designing more often, not full time. So when I go to colleges and universities, typically someone goes, and won't you do a master class for us? So yeah, I'm still kind of dabbling in the teaching thing.
Well, I also just want to say that I have done a live recording at LDI for 3 years. This will be our 4th year this year. Every year I've been like, hey, Roma, you want to participate? And Roma's like, absolutely, let's do it. And then something happens or a session conflicts. Roma, when you retired, I was like, oh, this is perfect. Roma's going to be available. And then, of course, Ellen, with the schedule this year, clashed sessions again. So,
oh, I did. I'm sorry. Well, we've got you this time.
And then Roma's designing again. So there was something where she's like, oh, I'm off designing, so I can't do this. So anyway, Roma's just as busy as ever, but I'm so excited that you're at least on this special episode of the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Since you design in, theater, music, dance, is there a live event genre that you like best to go to or to be involved with?
Okay, asking as a designer or as a audience member?
Let's go with both.
Dance is sort of my bedrock. That's really where I started, and I still find it so magical. The expression of the human body, its connection to that visual world that's almost purely visual. There's not text. Of course, there is text in many dance pieces. And of course, its communication with music is always very, very connected and very strong sort of sharing of themes and concepts and moods and all that. But dance is my, that's my place. I love it.
So that's as a designer.
That's as a designer. Lately, though, ever since I saw Sleep No More, and then I have gone into various devised, immersive, site-specific other projects as well. Then She Fell. I went to Meow Wolf in Vegas, and I want to go to the others as well. I'm really just really intrigued with immersive site specific works as an audience member.
That's really very cool. So do you consider yourself good, bad, or neutral with money?
I would say now I'm neutral in retirement. I would say as a young and mid-level professional, I was horrible in my finances. I was bad. I was bad. The only good thing I did was I did not use credit cards. So I did not find myself in the kind of debt that can be scary when times are lean. I just did without. I didn't go hungry and I wasn't homeless, none of that. But there were lots of really, really lean times trying to do a freelance career. Two things that changed that was I got married and I had a partner who was so much better in financial planning, and his work was more steady as well. So that was something that I could fall back on. And then when I started teaching, of course, going into academia, some of it is, yes, of course, there's a steady paycheck, but I also had to contribute to a pension fund, which, as if I were a young person today, get a 401k. Get started early now. Even when you think you can't, do it now. Report your income for your taxes so that you can collect Social Security if you are a freelancer. That's the advice I would give now. And I would do now if I could do it over again. Yeah.
So as a freelance designer, how do you approach pricing your work and services?
Well, Ellen, much of the dance world, they are not at a level. Much of it is great. It would depend on the company, to be quite honest. I did become early on a member of United Scenic Artists, and I use that as my guideline for pricing. But frankly, there's some companies that just would not be able to meet that kind of financial obligation. It really came down to, is this a company I really, really, really wanted to work for? What was its artistic value to me as far as my development and just what I wanted to do? I always insisted on being paid something. I know there are some people who will do jobs for free. I won't. But sometimes it's like $500 and sometimes it's $3,000. So, there's the range. What's its value to me?
Sometimes you mean it's just worth doing. It's a heartstrings project.
Definitely. And with some other collaborative artists that I just die to work with, it's just such a great collaborative team that means so much to me artistically and also community-wise. That's a project that I say, I have to do this.
I assume that you've often had to make the choice of, do I want to do this for a fee that's low? But I'm just curious, was there ever a time where you did something because the paycheck was really good? Did that ever happen to you? And if so, how did it go?
If I did work with a company that had a USA contract, yeah, those are wonderful, wonderful paychecks and wonderful environments to work in, highly professional. It's interesting. I noticed that as my fee goes up, I'm purely a designer, but as the fee goes down, sometimes I have to stage manage. So, sometimes I am hanging lights, not so much anymore in my older years, but that certainly was in my younger years. Yeah. I was hanging lights myself. Sometimes I'm running the light board as the fee goes down because that company could not afford all of those positions.
Did the teaching position give you some stability?
Oh, a great deal of stability, yes. Some people call academia that golden handcuffs. There was work that I could not do because I had obligations for that teaching job that I regret, but that was the trade-off.
What is the biggest financial lesson you've learned over your career?
Probably more planning. saving. Now I would say to a young person, establish or ask your parents to help you establish a 401k very early on. I also was paying off college loans, nothing like what kids today are paying off. I mean, some kids have tens of thousands, if not over $100,000 in debt. And I understand wanting to incur that debt because in some instances, you will need that academic credential. You just will. That's it. I was lucky. I owed less than $9,000 by the end of it. So slowly, I mean, sometimes I did have to defer it. I couldn't, I I told my creditors like $100 a month. That's all you're going to get, and just paid that regularly. And I never defaulted. I never had to default. But like I said, times were lean. I didn't go into debt. I paid off my college loans. I wish I had been more knowledgeable about establishing retirement funds.
I wonder if we were a generation where women were not taught such things because they assumed we would have a husband who took care of it.
I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that I was raised without given knowledge of this is how you're going to take care of yourself. And I think the assumption was, go to college, marry a rich man, and then it'll all be taken care of for you. And, I didn't go that way. I just wasn't interested.
So how did you navigate your financial stability during the slow years in the industry?
By not spending a lot of money, basically. I didn't live beyond my means. I had really, really sketchy living places. I lived in New York, Brooklyn, Harlem, studio apartments, shared apartments, and didn't go out a lot. Or if I did, went out really cheaply. Didn't buy a lot of stuff. Things that I did buy were for business. Photography equipment, software, computers. That's where my money went.
Right.
And I didn't take vacations.
Right. Well, that's the good thing about New York. New York can be the most expensive place on the planet, but you can also get a bunch of people and go to Chinatown and eat for $10.
You can.
Especially in those days.
And I'm not really knowledgeable about it since the Affordable Care Act, but getting health insurance was really important for me to do. And I was able to do it through artist advocacy groups. Dance Theater Workshop at that time offered health insurance policies that were reasonable for artists. Now I don't know how a younger person would navigate that, but I would put that high on my priority list. Ellen, I don't know if you know, but I definitely know of a couple of artists that in some instances died because they didn't get the medical care, because they didn't have insurance. So they didn't go to a doctor. Some kind of a condition just got exacerbated.
Yeah, that's one of the downfalls of American healthcare. But did the faculty position come with good benefits?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it did.
So that would help on that financial stability and the healthcare front.
A lot.
Yeah. So are there specific tools or software or resources you use to manage your finances now?
No, no, I don't. My partner has a best friend who's a tax lawyer, and I just sent him all the stuff once a year. I don't do my own taxes. I haven't in 20 years.
I don't either, so that's okay.
But yeah, find an accountant to do it.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit the other day, that there are people specific to our industry who kind of understand the ins and outs of people working freelance and not freelance. And, that's the really good thing about French healthcare. You get a social security number the minute you have your first job. That's national healthcare, as it were. And it's portable, which is the best thing about it. So if you change jobs, there's not even a blip, not for 5 seconds. Your employer really doesn't, they can pay there's a little wraparound policy that the employer can pay or pay part of, but the basic Social Security policy doesn't change, whether you're employed, unemployed, self-employed, in the Army, changing jobs. And that portability is a really, really great feature. Because I know in the States, people like lose a job or change jobs and have to go on Cobra, and it costs them $1,500 a month for 6 months till the new job kicks in. Most European countries would never allow that. Anyway, that's an aside. But has networking and relationship building helped you financially over the years?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So much of our work comes from word of mouth. You know someone who knows someone who says, yeah, you were looking for a lighting designer. This is the person because you worked with them before. It's priceless. Networking is priceless. That's why I really like LDI, and particularly meeting young people that I don't have a lot of opportunity, but when I do have that opportunity to pass on names, contacts, I do it without hesitation. It's the bedrock, I think, of how to expand one's visibility in the field.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, I'm the same way. Like I pass on names as much as possible. Because once you know somebody's goals, it's like, well, I either can help or I can't, or I know somebody who can help or I can't.
There are sometimes people who have projects going on, theatrical projects, dance projects, and they just don't know. They just don't know designers and other artists. And it's helpful if, oh, yeah, I just met you. Do you know? Okay, you can't do it, but do you know someone who can? And yeah, it's priceless. It's priceless.
Absolutely.
Because even this podcast, like I'm doing it to help people learn more about their finances and get the business side in order. But I will say, honestly, more people probably connect with me looking for designers or stuff like that. Because I'm the same way. Like I only hire so many as like one assistant a year or something. Like I don't have the opportunity often. Also, I want to go a little off book here just because, I gave you the questions ahead of time, but some more have come up that I just want to ask you about. So one thing I just want to point out is you keep mentioning like getting a 401k, like when you're younger, maybe get it up. I just want to say that's a thing that historically is tied to like a 9 to 5 job, a full-time job, but anybody can get one. Like if you're a
Right.
freelancer, you can set one up.
Yeah.
And I'm also a champion of the Roth IRA. If you're really organized and crazy, you can open up a Roth 401k. So I'm just knowing, but so if you're a freelancer, you can access a 401k. And if you happen to be younger and you're listening to this, listen to what Roma's been saying,
Yeah.
take the time to go set it up. And I will just throw out, because I'm tight-fisted, let's say, that 401ks cost a little more. Like a Roth IRA, you can open up, no fee, no minimum, stuff like that. 401k, there is like a quarterly fee usually through Fidelity or Schwab or whatever it is, and it's like $45. It varies. You can shop around to try to find the least expensive one. So if you're younger and you're opening it up and you're like, I don't want to pay that $45 every 3 months, I totally get it, but just factor it in because let's round that to 50. So that's $200 a year to keep it open. So forward that into the future, you're going to pay it in your lifetime. If you kept it, you're going to pay $5,000. That's $5,000 over the life of your lifetime to open that account when you're younger. I think it's worth it. I'm just saying that because I know I would be like, I'm not going to open this up because it's the $45 fee, but I'm encouraging everyone.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Ethan. Really. Yeah.
Okay, so Roma, you keep saying that you wish you had been more organized, or when you were younger, you hadn't waited till maybe longer or something to sort of get organized with your finances. You taught for a long time, you're retired. Can you define what a long time was? And really, what I am asking here is, what does your retirement look like? Because you've mentioned like Social Security and pension, and you've mentioned USA. So I don't know if you have USA pension and school pension. So I'm just wondering, sorry, I'm long-winded here.
Yeah. What has it all added up to be? Yeah. I didn't do pension through USA because I never really made enough in United Scenic Artists contracts. I didn't have enough union work to put into a pension with them. And I probably could have looked at it more. I just assumed like there's just not enough here for me to really count on. So I never did that. Yes, my pension was through my job at TCU, Texas Christian University. And of course, Social Security that I had built up even before I started teaching, but certainly once I was teaching, it regularly contribute to my Social Security. So right now I have an annuity in retirement. I have a annuity, which is a certain set amount of money, $500 that will come to me guaranteed until I die. And then in my pension itself, I'm taking out a little bit of an amount. I don't want to kill it all right now, right? I'm like, I'm probably going to live maybe for another 20 years. That's what I'm counting on. In the meantime, I haven't started my Social Security yet because I'm not at that highest age limit to start taking it, because I want that extra $900 a month by waiting for another 2 years, which, yeah, that's like $12,000 a year. That with my pension and my Social Security tides me over well. And I was able also to start savings once I was employed as a teacher, as a professor. So I have a little bit of savings. We paid off the home. But I will say we were able to pay off our home because my partner had inherited a house that he sold so we could pay off our. So it's inherited wealth as well. And I think that's important to recognize where all that came from. It wasn't just our labor, which we did work hard, but inherited wealth makes a big, huge deal.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out too, because it's also one of those things of where it's like if you're a freelancer, you're an artist or whatever, and you want to subscribe to that idea of like, I don't really need to get organized with my finances. It's like, well, if you have any offspring, and even if they're not your offspring, if you have people that friends or whatever that you want to help out their offspring and all that, it's like inherited wealth is such a helpful thing that even if you don't have it, if you want to give it to somebody else, like, yes, you'll never live to tell the tale or see it or anything, but I guarantee those people won't be unhappy with what you've done for them.
Right. And, getting older now, Ethan, I think about what is my legacy? What do I want to have done in my time here? Yeah. So I think about my estate, such as it is, how that can benefit future generations. That's become important as I'm getting older. Yeah.
You could start the Roma Flowers grant to a young dance designer in New York who's living on ramen noodles, and $1,000 a year would be a huge amount of money.
I'm working on it.
No, I'll bet you are.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
Here's just a tangent because we had somebody from Missouri State University on the show once, and they had started a scholarship for the costume shop manager who had passed away and in their name. And it was something we all donated to. But it took $25,000 to get it. I don't know if endowed is the right word, but where it could produce an amount of money every year. Anyway, so $25,000, yeah, it's a lot of money, but anybody with $25,000 could start a scholarship that will renew year after year after year. So it's not completely out of reach if you know that information.
Right.
So yeah, the Roma Flowers scholarship coming. We'll have you back on when it gets sorted out.
Right. So people in New York will say, I have to apply to Rockefeller. I have to apply to Roma. I have to apply to this. The Jerome Foundation and the Flowers.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Roma, another thing I am so thankful that you said, man, am I so thankful. You were not vested in the USA pension, even though we look at Roma from a distance and we say USA member, worked for a long time,
right.
Must be vested. I, Ethan Steimel, am not vested in the pension. But it's the same thing as you. It's like, I just don't do enough USA work.
Correct.
I certainly have had years, but you have to have enough for 5 years in a row. With you get 1 year gap if you want, but if it turns into 2 years, or if you have 2 1 year gaps, then the clock starts over and you have to build it up 5 years again. So that's where I am, and I'm thinking I'm never going to get into it. So I'm just happy you said that, because I feel like it's something I hide under the covers, but it's a reality.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't know if there's a way that the union can address that. What happens when members don't generate enough income to sustain that kind of level to be invested in that kind of way? Can the union tier members? I don't know. I have no idea, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not faulting the pension. That's how all pensions work. That's how the TCU pension, I imagine, works. So I'm not faulting it. But everyone's always saying, oh, the USA pension's so good. And it is if you work on a USA contract for that much time. So I just like that. You're the second person we've had on the show that said, oh, yeah, I've been working X amount of years and I'm not vested. If anybody else is listening that's not vested, I just want them to know there are other people like
not be ashamed.
Yeah.
Yes, but in Roma's case, there was the university pension. A lot of freelance designers don't have that. So they want to work enough to get the USA pension.
And if you make it a goal, I burned out on theater. I have excuses of why I didn't, but if you make it a goal, it is attainable if you make it your priority. And it's not a bad idea to make it a priority.
But then you wonder what happens when there's another pandemic, and I don't know how.
Oh, they must have put a break on. They must have. Yeah,
they did. They gave another. They gave another extension. Yeah, so that was an anomaly exception that was handled
because no one was working.
Right, exactly. And also about the freelancers, that goes back to Roma's point of opening up a 401k, which I did because I wasn't vested. And I was like, look, no one's taking care of me but me. So I did it. So that's something you could do.
And even you also have a family, don't you?
Oh boy, Roma, thanks for reminding me.
Wait, is it one or two kids?
Just one. Just one. Roma.
Okay. So far, he's a baby.
All right, Ellen and Roma, neither one of you. Don't be saying two. Don't say the number two. We don't need that.
Why? 2, 3? I only had one, but my daughter had 2, so she made up for it.
Okay. Oh, that reminds me. I mean, he's only 18 months, but I got to remind him, like, you don't have to have 2. That's what I'm going to tell him. That's going to be my mantra. You don't have to have 2.
One and done. Well, don't you want him to have a sibling?
What are friends for? If he has a sibling, there's no time for friends.
Wow.
And I'm not outgoing, so I need him to go make friends for me. So if he makes friends, it's one and done, one and complete is okay. But anyway, I want to circle back to something else that Roma said, which was the Social Security, pay into your Social Security, make sure you're filing your taxes. So legally, we're all obligated to file our taxes. Yes.
So in my younger years, a lot of us were like, we just made a little bit of money. We're not gonna report that, and that's a mistake.
Yes, and that is what I wanted to highlight for you and point out is that everyone's always talking about not reporting. Yes, you can. I'm not going to call it cheat, but you can. Especially if it's something is under $600, you can definitely get away without reporting it, etc. And so by the end of the year, that could be several thousands you could get away without reporting. The other thing is there's this fight to deduct everything because it's like Amazon.com and Apple, they all pay $0 in taxes. They're such brilliant businesses. And we translate that to the freelancer lifestyle of we're a business too. And so the goal is to get the money you're paying in taxes to 0. And that is a good goal. And it's like, if you put money in a retirement account, that's deductible. So you can deduct how much you're earning. But we all pay into Social Security. And as a freelancer, you're paying that tax, Social Security tax for yourself. And if you are deducting everything and getting your income down to 0, you're then not paying into your Social Security. So that's a good point, Roma, that if people are listening and they're like, oh, I'm either not deducting as much as I could be or something, don't feel bad because you are paying your Social Security tax, which is going to help you out if you're so lucky to live that far. And I hope you are.
Well, you pay your Social Security tax on your net income, not your gross income. Because let's say you made $100,000 a year and you get your taxable income down to 30. What do you pay your Social Security on?
I'm going to try to get an answer, like an official answer on that, maybe by the time this episode comes out. But I can almost guarantee that it's on the 30. If it's all 1099 income. If it's W-2 income, it's already taken out.
Which means if you're going to do that and your Social Security you pay on the 30, you should be saving more because at the end of the day, you're going to get less in Social Security than if you had paid it on the 100.
Correct. So that's just something to be aware of for people is you want to pay into the Social Security. Because the way, I don't know the rules, but the way the Social Security works is I think they take your 15 highest years that you worked in your life, they average that, and that's somehow how they figure out how much Social Security you're going to get. So you at least want 15 years paying more into Social Security. Okay, I've taken us on tangents. Roma, you're going to be at LDI speaking this year because you're not going to be in the artistic finance session because you're too busy. But what are you talking about? And what do you want people taking away from that talk?
Well, this is like jumping a little bit ahead because I haven't really talked this over with Ellen yet, but I would like to speak with others who have really worked since COVID. And we did this industry reflection concerning equity, diversity in our field, and found it very wanting. So now we are 4 years on from that. What have we discovered? What has happened? And I know some positive things, and there's some wonderful things that have happened. People have had really great progress in those kinds of issues. And I would just like to talk about what we've done right, what we've gotten right since we had this period of looking at ourselves, and what we can do better, and how we all can still help.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think that the diversity and inclusion, equity, they are still really big issues, but I do think that we have made some progress.
And just recognizing that we needed to, I think was a huge, just a huge step in the right direction, first off. I want to give credit where people have been doing some really great stuff. Get those names out.
Yeah. Because I'm very cynical about everything.
So I can be too. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, the world is just going to hell in a handbasket.
But for future episodes, I've been interviewing Broadway producers, and I've sort of been like, yeah, there was the sort of COVID situation, and it was like, let's do better. And then I'm seeing some of the stuff that's being produced and talking with some of these producers, and I'm thinking like, did nothing change? Did anything change?
Well, I think in the nonprofit world, a lot changed in terms of the basic color of the rainbow in terms of people. And I think a lot of people from formerly underrepresented communities are really getting a voice, especially in the nonprofit world, which is great. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting to, because I like that Roma's wanting to, congratulate and highlight things that have gone well. But yesterday, one of the co-producers from Our Town on Broadway, they messaged me because they're looking for some investors, and they shared their materials with me. And I was looking at not only the cast, but the creative team and the producing team, and it's very diverse. And so my cynical mind shifted a little bit to be like, oh, wow, there are actually people out there really, this is very different from if this show were produced 5 years ago. Like it's noticeable. Roma, okay, so I know you're going to be doing that.
Well, wait, not only does Roma do the diversity panel for us, he also is sort of the chair of our Pat McKay Diversity and Design Scholarship Panel, which means that earlier this year, she headed a bunch of live Zooms with the candidates and helped choose this year's recipients on the lighting and projection side, and will present them with their scholarship information at LDI. And I believe you're on the portfolio review.
Yes, yeah. So a lot of my interest lies with young people. I've discovered since retirement, I miss my students. I miss that energy. I miss them. I miss them. I recently did a production at University of Colorado in Boulder, and there were all these kids in the booth, and it was, it's like, yeah, that's what I'm really enjoying doing right now is networking with kids, youngsters. Yeah,
that's awesome. So if there's any youngsters listening,
yeah,
and they're going to be at LDI,
say hi to me.
You'll find Roma. She'll be very busy, but you'll know where to find her at least.
Yeah, sign up for the portfolio review.
Yeah.
If I can say one other thing, anyone who's listening who would like to go to LDI, there's actually a new promo code called Artistic Finance, all one word in capital letters. And if you use that when you register, you can get a free LDI Expo Hall Pass, which currently is a $99 value. So
wait, Artistic Finance is the code?
Oh, you don't need one.
No, but I know kids who do.
Great. Share it around. Artistic Finance, all one word, all caps. And they put it in, they pick an Expo Hall Pass and put that in as the promo code at www.ldshow.com. And they can get, thanks to Artistic Finance, a complimentary Expo Hall Pass, which comes with the new technology breakfast and the awards ceremony which, by the way, is on Tuesday morning this year, Roma. I don't know if you noticed that online, but we've moved it from the Monday evening to the Tuesday morning as a breakfast. So a lot going on. Come see Roma and come see Artistic Finance.
Yeah, I love that Artistic Finance has a promo code because I'm not going to lie, Ellen, in years past, I've gone to other companies and gotten their extra codes or promo codes.
Right. Well, that's why I decided you should have your own this year.
That's amazing. Okay, code Artistic Finance for an LDI Expo Pass. Amazing. Well, Roma, we have gone 10 minutes or more over our time, 20 minutes over our time.
I hope it can be useful or helpful, or just like, don't do what she did. Even that can be a valuable lesson. So, but thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. And for anybody not watching the video on this one, Roma is smiling and has smiled a lot. So I figure if you've made it through a career in the arts and you're smiling at the end of it, you're doing something right.
I'm really grateful for having found theater and dance and this art. For me, I think it was a lifesaver. I think that's what we do. We help lives. It's not maybe the first response. We're not first responders, but there is something really, really vital in what we all do. It's important. It's our culture. So yeah, I'm grateful to have been able to have this life I've had.
I love it, man. Well, thank you, Roma. That's it for this episode. My takeaways are Roma saying she was bad with finances early and mid-career, but she did something amazingly good, which was not use credit cards. So not going into debt other than $9,000 of student loans, which took years to pay off. So we talked last episode about living without a credit card, or at least not using a credit card extensively. And here is Roma, an example of someone who navigated life without credit card debt. Now, in the lean times, she lived sparsely, and in better times, she relaxed. Now, there's a balance that everybody has, but if you can manage without the credit card revolving debt, it's definitely way better. $500 or $3,000 being the range for dance design fees. That was it. No secrecy, no mystery, just sometimes it's $500 and sometimes it's $3,000. So if you're wanting to design dance or theater, that's often the range you can anticipate. A couple things Roma said that stuck with me. I don't have takeaways. I just want to say what she said. The higher the fee, the more I can just be a designer. The lower the fee, the more I end up helping out with other things. Sometimes I have to be the stage manager. Some dance companies can't meet the financial obligations of hiring designers. Now, Roma said she never works completely for free, and that's a great philosophy. If you remember back to episode 160 discussing theatrical labor, Natalie Robbins said the largest subsidy given to the arts is the workers giving their time. Meaning, yes, Roma isn't working for free when she takes a $500 gig, but depending on how much time and energy that job requires, she is subsidizing it. That's neither good or bad, but it's something to consider and remember as you're navigating jobs. The golden handcuffs of academia. So many lighting designers we've had on the show are in academia for the steady paycheck and the benefits that balance the freelance career. Something that has never been mentioned is the jobs that can't be taken because of that. Roma said she regretted some of the jobs that she couldn't take because of her teaching obligations. And would she go back and change her life? No, but going into academia creates limitations for freelancers. I remember our conversation with Paul Taswell. He mentioned that he taught for 3 years and then went back. And I was sort of surprised because in my brain, if somebody goes to the steady paycheck, that's where they're going to be, golden handcuffed forever. But he went back. So hearing Roma mention this reminds me that, yes, there are drawbacks to that steady paycheck. Healthcare, that's a topic we've avoided on the show because it's such a headache. But yes, health insurance is important. We always think of it for big problems like a broken arm or cancer, but Roma hinted at something there about regular checkups and preventative care. So if you have a big issue, you can go to the emergency room and get sorted out, insurance or not. Now, yes, you're going to end up with a ridiculous bill, but you'll still get taken care of. But Roma mentioned ignoring little things that then grow into big things. Now, I'm so fortunate to be married to Nicole, who is a health fiend. And every year she makes us get a physical and get our blood work done. And she makes us go to the eye doctor and she makes us go to the dentist twice a year. Now, the dentist was a big one because in college I consumed a lot of liquid sugar and I wasn't great about brushing my teeth. Now, this is a painful story to listen to, so feel free to skip a couple minutes. But one of the times I went to the dentist, I had 13 cavities. Yes, 13. You're thinking, how is that even possible? Do we even have 13 teeth? So, yes, I did get them filled, but it took 2 visits to the dentist because they didn't want to numb both sides of my mouth. It was also the silver fillings at that time. But I tell this horror story because if I hadn't gone to the dentist, I wouldn't have learned about the cavities until it was too late. So I could have lost teeth, the quality of life would have gone down, or merely the cost of repairing them would have been way more. Another health story, one of the times I went for a physical, they gave me an emergency shot of vitamin D. And that's fairly minor because everybody working in the entertainment industry doesn't really see the sun regularly. I now take a vitamin D pill every morning, not because the doctor said to, but just for my own peace of mind. And at the same visit that happened, they gave me an emergency shot of vitamin B12. The doctor said, we have to give you this shot today, and you're going to need to come back for 7 days in a row to get another shot, and then every week for a while, because your body needs to remember how to intake B12. Since you don't have B12 going into your body is risking unlearning how to break it down. And then you're going to have to give yourself shots for the rest of your life unless this can sort of kickstart it back. Now, it all worked out, and I now take a B12 pill every morning as well. And I'm telling you these stories not because you're dying to hear about my ailments and growing old, but because those were relatively small things that could have turned into big things. So would giving myself a weekly shot be the end of the world? No, but I avoided it by having health insurance and going to get a physical once a year. I've also gone to the doctor to address acne, remove a cyst on my finger, which I got from a metal splinter that I got when I was hanging lights off Broadway at the roundabout. I've been to the podiatrist for ankle pain from jogging. Anyway, I'm 36, so I'm not dying, but over the years, I've needed little repairs, and I was able to do that because I had health insurance and because Nicole took the initiative to make sure we were keeping up on things. So it's never something I've really thought about other than when complaining about the deductible. But Roma makes a great point that health insurance is an expense you need to incorporate into your life. Taxes. That's something that has come up on these episodes leading up to LDI. We keep saying to get an accountant that understands the industry. And yes, that's a great idea. And there are firms and accountants who do that. And if you need an accountant recommendation, check out the show notes for episode 96, artisticfinance.com/96. But if you've listened to this show for an extended amount of time, you'll realize that several people in the industry actually file their own taxes. So in that episode 96, we asked people how much they were paying to file taxes. And what we learned is that 50% of freelancers who responded to the survey file their own taxes. Even last week, Asia Jackson mentioned that she files her own taxes. Next episode, Heather Gilbert will talk about how she files her own taxes. And both of them merely use TurboTax. And even Roma said, I send it off to a tax lawyer. She didn't say they were a freelancer or entertainment-focused tax professional. She just said a tax lawyer. I'm pointing this out because as much as we claim our industry is quirky, that's really only in deductions, and everything else is fairly cut and dry from an accountant's perspective. So yes, a specialty accountant is ideal, but 99% of people will do just as well with any accountant. And I'm just clarifying this because even on this show, you'll hear something, and then the next week, you'll hear something that's maybe conflicting advice. So as long as you feel confident in what you're doing, that's what's most important. So don't rock the boat just because you might be able to save a little money doing it another way. Because Uncle Sam and his minions are going to see to it that you don't do it wrong. So file taxes however is best for you. 401ks. I mentioned opening a 401k. Now what you specifically are looking for is an individual or solo 401k. Fidelity and Schwab both have very low fee options, even lower than what I was saying. but they don't offer a Roth option. So if that's something important to you, you'll have to go with a different company. I like Roth when you're young because it doesn't offer a tax break now, but it offers one in retirement. Rocket Money and E-Trade both offer Roth solo 401ks. I have no affiliation with any of those, but I'm just passing along the info from an Investopedia article that I'm going to link in the show notes. Networking. Roma says, yes, do it. It's good. But how exactly do you network? So a repeating theme we're having is showing up. Show up, get involved, and that is networking 101. It doesn't have to be a networking event. Those are important too, like LDI or anywhere, but showing up after those network events or before them is how you build the relationships. And actually, two ways I've networked in the past few years is one, this podcast. So back on episode 23, I interviewed actor and director Joe Jones. Now, that was forever ago. And since then, he moved to Illinois, I moved to Arizona, and now I've relocated to Missouri. But when I moved to Missouri, I got a call from Gio who says, hey, I'm directing a show. Do you want to light it? Now, would Gio have asked me that had I not shown up and spent time with him on the podcast? Maybe, maybe not. Another way was when we left New York. I lit the summer season of Tent Theater in Springfield, Missouri. Now, one of the stage managers there is amazing, Kathleen Haynes, shout out. And what is amazing about Kathleen is that she has a positive attitude. So no matter the stress of rehearsals or rehearsing multiple shows at once or being exhausted with the long hours, she is positive and happy and smiles. And because of that, I developed a great relationship with Kathleen and I took an interest in her life. So that was last summer. We haven't seen each other since then. But a month ago, I got a call from Logan, who's the producer at the Silver Dollar City theme park in Branson, Missouri. And he says, hi, I live in Springfield. I'm friends with Kathleen and she's not going to be working on this show, but would you want to be the lighting designer for it? Now, is that networking or is it just working? I'm going to say networking because Kathleen and I connected on a friend level more than just the SMLD relationship, which always does have to be a bit tight. So anyway, networking is important, but it's just you being you and you control it. You just have to show up where you want to be with the people you want to be with. And if you are going to be at LDI, go say hi to Roma or Ellen or me, because Roma mentioned she loves meeting students or early career folks. But even if you're retired or mid-career and you want to meet Roma, go find her. Clearly, she's someone who loves a career in the arts and loves connecting theater makers who need designers or lighting folks with those designers. So go say hi, even if it's just to make a quick face-to-face recognition and then on with our lives. Generational wealth. It doesn't need to be a lot. A small amount can make a big difference. And this tied in a little bit to scholarships. I mentioned Missouri State costume shop manager who passed away. That was Brad Ferguson. And the scholarship is the Brad Ferguson Costume Assistant Scholarship. So if for some reason you want to contribute to it, you can do so at MissouriStateFoundation.org. And it's for students who work in the costume shop. And I'll put a link in the show notes. Paying into Social Security. So I looked it up, and yes, as freelancers, we pay Social Security tax of roughly 13% on our net income. This is automatically deducted on W-2 income. So regardless of if you're freelance or not, you're paying this tax. But if on your 1099 income, you are deducting almost every possible thing so that your taxable income is, let's just say $1,000 for the year, you're only paying Social Security on that $1,000 of income, which some years is okay. But in the long term, you want to be paying more into Social Security because you'll get more in retirement. Now, Social Security is one of those automatic obligations. So I'm not saying rely on it in retirement, but it definitely plays a part and you don't want to avoid paying the taxes because they correlate to your future. Ellen briefly pointed out that if you do deduct everything and avoid paying into Social Security, you need to be saving more for your own retirement because obviously you're going to be getting less Social Security. But either way, The tax system is aimed to help you because contributing to your own IRA or 401k reduces your taxable income, so it's all balancing out. And a correction to something I said, which was that Social Security is determined by the highest 15 years of earnings. I looked it up and it's actually the highest 35 years, which makes it even more important to be paying Social Security taxes throughout each year. Or if you're not, make sure you're doubling your efforts toward your own retirement savings, which arguably can have a bigger payoff because you get full access to them and it's not reliant on a third party called Uncle Sam, who I'm not saying is bad, but I'm just saying is a third party. Oh, and the craziest thing that ever happened on an episode is that Ellen gave us a free expo code. So how cool is that? Artistic Finance, all capital letters, all one word. I will admit that I'm such a self-conscious person that my initial thought was, oh no, we only have 200 listeners. And of those 200, only a couple go to LDI. And they probably already have expo passes. So what if no listeners go to LDI and no one takes advantage of that code? And then next year, Ellen says, no one used your code. Please distance yourself from LDI. But hey, that's a problem I just created in my head. So what is cool is that we have our very own code for the conference. So if you're listening and you're considering going to LDI, that is one less thing you have to worry about. So to register or look at the dates, go to ldishow.com. A side note about LDI, it's not necessarily a theater conference. So as you may have picked up from the guests that we've been chatting with, it's a showcase of all the gear that we use in the theater, but not necessarily the theater makers because so many other people are using it. Theater workers only represent a tiny fraction of the attendees, but I want to point out a lot that we know, which is Roma is going, Jeff Kreuter goes, Ken Billington goes. I've seen Lap Chi Chu there, and Jeanette Yu, and Don Chang, and Don Holder, Jason Lyons, Justin Townsend, Jen Shriver, Carolyn Wong, and Sarah Goss is there. So if you're a theater person thinking it isn't worth your while because maybe you don't overlap into corporate or events, or you don't get to specify the newest gear, still go because there are lighting people of every kind. And there are things to be learned just by visiting the show floor. And of course, it gives you a perspective on the scale of the industry and just introduces you to new ideas. All right, that's it for my takeaways. I'd like to give a shout out to our patrons who are making this show possible, specifically our newest patron, Adam Ditzel. Adam, many thanks for joining and lending your support. If you too would like to join up, head over to our Patreon page and look at some of the perks, and that's at patreon.com/artisticfinance. Now, the dad joke to end the episode. Opening an individual Roth 401k is like designing the lights for Swan Lake. You slowly build the show in preparation for a well-lit grand finale. But while Swan Lake ends with tragedy and death and then eternal bliss, with a slowly built Roth 401k, you'll have a retirement of bliss before the inevitable end. So no tragic fade outs here, just a well-lit end to the story. That's all we want. That's it for today. Until next week, break a leg.
Thank you for listening to Artistic Finance, where we interview successful artists, leaders, and investors to help educate and inspire the creative community. To access our show notes and resources, go to artisticfinance.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any decision, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Artistic Finance. Written permission must be granted before syndication or